Lyra stood alone in her spacious chamber, staring at the glowing holographic message that floated in the air. Her heart pounded as the words blinked over and over. Galactic law. You have 3 days to marry or your estate and life rights will be forfeited. The words burned into her mind. 3 days. That was all she had to secure her future or lose everything. Her hands shook. She looked around the room that had once been full of life and warmth, now silent after her husband's sudden death. She had been alone ever since, but she had never imagined that galactic law would force her to marry again so soon. Lyra had always been proud, confident, and independent, but now fear gripped her like icy fingers. What am I going to do? She whispered to herself. Her voice was soft, almost lost in the cold, high ceilings of the room. Her eyes scanned the hologram again. She could feel the weight of every second that passed. Every moment was precious. Lyra thought of the men in her city, the wealthy aliens who could secure her marriage. But none of them wanted a widow. To them, she was a risk, a burden, and a reminder of her late husband's power. She had no allies, no supporters, just a ticking clock and the threat of losing everything she had built. She sank to the floor, her long silver robes pooling around her. The deadline was cruel. Galactic law had never been kind to widows, and now she understood that survival meant bending the rules, or taking a risk no one else would dare. Her eyes fell on a hollow map of the city, showing the small square where interstellar traders often gathered. That was where humans came. She had heard of them before, strange, unpredictable, and sometimes reckless. Some said they had hearts bigger than planets. Others said they were fools who could change fate with a single choice. Lyra's mind raced. If she could find a human, one with courage, with wit, and with a sense of honor, perhaps she could convince him to help her. Perhaps he could agree to the marriage and save her from the law. But humans were rare here. They did not mingle often with the elite, and no one knew if any would listen to a desperate alien widow. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the city outside. Ships buzzed in the distance, merchants shouted their offers, and the wind carried faint laughter from the street markets. Somewhere among the crowd a human trader might be walking, a man who could change her life, a man who could save her. Lyra's decision came quickly, almost violently. She stood, brushing her robes and smoothing her hair. Her heart raced and her mind steadied. She would not waste a second. She would find him. She would convince him. And if she had to bend every rule of charm, persuasion, and wit, she would do it. She activated her personal communicator and sent a quick message to the trader she had heard about. Marcus, meet me. I need your help. Time is short. There was no hesitation in her tone, only urgency. 3 days, she reminded herself. 3 days, and everything was lost if she failed. The minutes dragged as she waited. Every sound in her chamber seemed amplified. The soft hum of the lights, the distant calls of the city, the faint ticking of the wall clock, all marked time slipping away. Finally, a reply came. Marcus, the human. He agreed to meet, though his tone was cautious, curious, and just slightly amused. Lyra's chest tightened. She had a chance, but it was fragile. She would need more than words. She would need courage, persistence, and something she had never given before. Vulnerability. As the sun set outside her chamber windows, casting a soft orange glow across the city, Lyra prepared herself. She practiced her words, her expressions, the way she would move. She had to be convincing. She had to make Marcus believe in her need, in her determination, in the truth of her plea. By the time she left her chamber, the city lights were alive with motion. Ships glided overhead. Traders shouted deals, and aliens of every shape and color moved through the streets. Lyra's pulse was steady now, fueled by a mix of fear and determination. She walked with purpose, every step echoing in the stone corridors of her palace. She found Marcus in a small square, examining rare minerals from a distant planet. His eyes lifted as she approached, and for a moment the world seemed to freeze. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest as she said the words she had rehearsed 1,000 times. Marry me, she said, her voice low but urgent. I'll warm your bed. I have 3 days, and you are my only choice. Marcus blinked. He froze. He did not laugh. He did not walk away. He simply looked at her, curiosity and caution in his eyes. Lyra held his gaze, her desperation clear, her plea honest. She had 3 days to convince him or lose everything, and so the countdown began. Marcus stared at Lyra, trying to process what she had just said. Marry me? You'll warm my bed? The words echoed in his mind like a strange melody. He had heard humans propose, aliens propose, even interspecies trade negotiations, but this was something else entirely. The alien before him, silver-haired and radiant, was offering not just marriage but herself in a way that seemed both desperate and sincere. He took a slow breath, keeping his expression calm. Humans had a saying, never make a deal in haste, but this was no ordinary deal. Lyra's voice had urgency, her eyes held fear, and the holographic notice from Galactic Law, he had seen it flicker briefly when she summoned him, was proof that time was against her. 3 days, Marcus finally said, his deep voice low and measured.
That's all the time you have?
Lyra nodded, her hands trembling slightly. Yes, 3 days or I lose everything. My home, my inheritance, even my life rights. You're my only hope. No one else will help me. Her voice wavered, but she held her chin high. Pride had not left her, even in desperation. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Humans valued courage, intelligence, and honesty. Lyra had all three. But he was no fool. There had to be a catch. Why him? Why would a human care about an alien widow, especially one he barely knew? I don't know you, Marcus said finally. Why me? Lyra took a small step closer, lowering her voice. Because you're different. I can see it. You are clever, you are brave, and you have a heart. Others only see wealth, power, or risk, but you see possibility. Marcus raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk forming. Flattery won't get you far, Lyra. I'm not flattering, she insisted. I'm desperate. And I'm honest. I have no other choice. If I don't marry someone who will accept me, someone who can act quickly, I'll lose everything. He crossed his arms, considering. A marriage proposal for convenience was not unusual in the galaxy. But Lyra's urgency, combined with her intelligence and fear, made it different. Something inside him stirred, a mix of curiosity, caution, and unexpectedly respect. What's in it for me? Marcus asked, his tone sharper now. He was a trader, a negotiator, and he knew every deal had terms. Lyra hesitated for a heartbeat, then spoke clearly. Survival. My gratitude. My loyalty, and you will have my company. I am not weak. I am not useless. If you agree, you will gain an ally who can navigate alien politics, who can offer knowledge and resources that no human could easily access. You will gain me. Fully, honestly, without deceit. Marcus leaned back slightly, impressed despite himself. Her words were simple, but her meaning was clear. She was offering more than just marriage. She was offering partnership. I have to think, he said cautiously. 3 days isn't a lot of time. And there are risks. The law, your rivals, other aliens who might interfere. Marrying you is not simple. Lyra's gaze hardened. I know, and that is why I came to you first. I need someone who can act fast. Someone who can see beyond the surface. I need you, Marcus. You're my only chance. Marcus studied her again. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the fear in her eyes, and the determination that refused to break. Humans valued courage in strangers, and here it was, pure, urgent, and impossible to ignore. Fine, he said after a long pause. I will consider it. But I don't make decisions lightly. You need to show me that this is more than desperation, that you are truly sincere, and that this will not end in disaster. Lyra's chest lifted slightly. A flicker of hope shone in her eyes. I will, I promise you. I have no other choice. I will prove it to you. Every moment counts, Marcus. Every second. You can't waste time doubting. Marcus nodded slowly. He didn't speak again immediately. Instead, he observed her, noting her confidence under pressure, her intelligence, and the subtle ways she moved. Alert, aware, cautious, but unbroken. This was not a woman who would fail. She was a woman who would fight, who would endure, who would find a way. Lyra noticed the change in his expression and dared to smile faintly. Tomorrow I will show you everything. Come with me and I will prove that this marriage is worth it. I will prove I am trustworthy, capable, and deserving of your choice. Marcus's eyes narrowed, thoughtful. Tomorrow, then. You have to convince me, Lyra. Show me that your words are more than just fear and charm. Show me that this is the only way and the right way. Lyra nodded, her resolve strengthening. I will, and Marcus, thank you for even listening. That is the first step. The first step towards saving everything. As they parted that evening, Lyra felt a strange mix of hope and anxiety. She had taken the first step, but the clock was still ticking. 1 day had passed. 2 more remained, and every hour would be filled with uncertainty, danger, and the impossible task of convincing a human to risk everything for her cause. But she would not fail. She could not fail. The countdown continued. The city buzzed around her, unaware of the stakes, unaware that 1 alien widow and 1 human traitor were about to challenge fate itself. Lyra's eyes sparkled with determination as she whispered to herself, 3 days, 2 left. I will not lose. Lyra could feel the weight of the deadline pressing down on her as she prepared for the next day. She had spoken to Marcus, and he had agreed to listen, but that was only the first step. The true challenge was far greater. Convincing a human to risk everything for her cause was difficult enough. But danger was already circling her, unseen and silent. In the shadows of the bustling alien city, rival nobles had learned of her predicament. Rumors traveled fast in the glittering corridors of power, carried by spies, merchants, and even servants who had no loyalty but their own profit. One name kept recurring in her thoughts, Count Vaylor. A cunning alien with sharp features and an even sharper mind, he saw opportunity where others saw crisis. He wanted Lyra's estate, not her companionship, not her marriage. Her wealth, her lands, and her influence could belong to him if he acted before Galactic Law's 3-day deadline passed. And he had a plan. Lyra sensed it first as a subtle shift in the city's energy. Traders avoided certain streets, shadows lingered longer than usual, and whispers followed her wherever she went. At first she dismissed it, focusing on Marcus and the task ahead. But then, she noticed the glint of a familiar insignia, a small emblem worn by Vaylor's agents on a merchant's cloak. Her stomach twisted. The threat was real. Marcus, as practical as ever, noticed the tension too. "Something is wrong," he said, his voice low, eyes scanning the crowded street. "You're being watched." Lyra nodded, her throat tight. "I know, Count Vaylor knows about me. About the marriage. He wants my estate. He won't wait for Galactic Law to expire. He'll act first." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Then we act first. We need a plan." They ducked into a narrow alley, avoiding the busy streets and bright lights of the city square. The walls were tall, casting long shadows that hid them from prying eyes. Marcus pulled out a small scanner from his bag, passing it over the area. Faint energy signatures flickered on the screen, 3 of them moving silently but deliberately surrounding their position. Lyra's heart raced. "They're here now?" "Yes," Marcus said grimly. "And they're not alone. They have weapons, but they're careful. They don't want to make a scene. Yet." Lyra thought fast. She could try to run, but the city was a maze and she was not fast enough to escape unseen. She could fight, but against trained agents she would be outmatched. Her only chance was to trust Marcus and trust herself. "Follow me," Marcus said. He led her through hidden passageways, narrow streets, and quiet courtyards. Lyra followed closely, keeping her robes tucked and her movements silent. Every step was measured, every breath controlled. Finally, they reached a secluded rooftop high above the city. The view was breathtaking. The alien skyline glimmered in silver and gold. Ships flew between towering spires, and neon lights danced on the streets below. But Lyra barely noticed. She was too aware of the danger that stalked them. Marcus crouched beside her, scanning the area again. "They're coordinating," he said. "They're trying to box us in, make us move where they want. They won't attack openly." "Not yet." Lyra swallowed hard. "Then we need a distraction. Something to draw them away just long enough for us to regroup, and for me to convince you." Marcus's eyes softened as he looked at her. "Convince me?" he said quietly. "I'm already considering it, but I need to see that you're strong, that you can survive this." Lyra nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "Then watch closely." She stood tall and focused, pulling a small device from her belt, a personal hologram projector. With a flick of her wrist, it created a dazzling display. Multiple images of her running in different directions, confusing the agents below. Lights blinked, shadows moved, and the agents hesitated, unsure which path she had taken. Marcus smiled faintly. "Clever." The agents recovered quickly, but the delay was enough. Lyra grabbed Marcus's hand. "We move now," she said urgently. Together, they leaped across narrow ledges, climbed small staircases, and darted through hidden alleys. Their movements were swift, synchronized, almost like a dance. For a moment, they felt invincible. But Lyra knew the danger was not over. Count Valer's agents would adapt. They would track, follow, and strike at the most critical moment. And the clock kept ticking. Less than 2 days left before the law forced her to act. They paused briefly on a quiet balcony, overlooking the city. Marcus studied her closely. "You're brave," he said. "More than I expected. Most would panic or give up, but you fight." Lyra smiled faintly despite her fear. "I have to. If I fail, everything ends. My life, my home, everything my husband built. I can't let that happen, and I won't let it happen." Marcus nodded, admiration in his eyes. "Then we survive, together." Lyra's heart fluttered, not from fear, but from the realization that she had an ally. A human who was willing to face danger with her, who might even understand her struggle. But there was no time for comfort. The agents were still out there, waiting, planning. And the clock kept counting down, 3 days, 2 left. And now, with enemies closing in, every second mattered more than ever. The city slept under a pale moon, but sleep was far from Lyra's mind. Her heart raced as she and Marcus moved silently across the rooftops, the glow of distant ships casting eerie shadows. Count Valer's agents were still hunting them. Their presence felt even when unseen. Every step could be their last if they slipped, if a shadow betrayed them, or if their pursuers acted too quickly. Lyra's silver hair fluttered in the cool night breeze. Her mind raced, thinking of strategies, escape routes, and ways to outsmart the agents. "We need to get out of the main city," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "There's a narrow canal district, old streets, hidden tunnels. If we can reach there, they'll have a hard time tracking us." Marcus nodded, scanning the city below. "Good idea. But it's risky. The paths are narrow, and if we're seen, there's nowhere to run." Lyra's lips pressed together in determination. "Then we move fast. No mistakes. We survive. Or everything ends." They leaped from rooftop to rooftop, careful to avoid loose tiles that might betray their presence. The city's alien architecture was a maze of sharp angles, glowing towers and hidden passages. It was beautiful, almost magical, but it was also a deadly trap for anyone pursued. As they landed on a wide terrace, Lyra paused, listening. The faint hum of engines in the distance told her the agents were closing in, moving carefully but methodically. She pulled a small device from her belt, a compact smoke emitter, and activated it. A thick violet fog spilled across the terrace, hiding them from prying eyes. Marcus's hand found hers, gripping tightly. "Clever trick," he murmured. Lyra smiled faintly, but her mind was elsewhere. "Not enough," she said. "We need more than tricks. We need speed." They sprinted down narrow staircases, their boots clicking softly against stone. The alleys below were dark, twisting and lined with old market stalls that had long since closed. The smell of damp metal and exotic spices filled the air. Every shadow seemed alive, every flicker of light a threat. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed behind them. One of Valer's agents had discovered their trail. Lyra spun, catching a glimpse of a tall figure moving with calculated precision. She grabbed Marcus's arm. "This way!" They darted into a hidden tunnel beneath an abandoned marketplace. The passage was narrow, forcing them to move single file. The walls were cold, damp, and rough, but it offered safety from pursuit for now. Lyra's heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the thrill of survival. Marcus glanced at her. "You're brave," he said quietly, his voice echoing slightly in the tunnel. "Most would panic, but you fight even when cornered." Lyra kept moving, not slowing her pace. "I have no choice," she replied. "I can't fail. Everything depends on me. My home, my inheritance, my life. And now even you, Marcus. You've chosen to be part of this." Marcus nodded, admiration and respect in his eyes. "Then we survive together. Whatever comes, we face it as a team." For a moment, their steps synchronized perfectly, the tension between them replaced by a silent understanding. Lyra realized something she hadn't expected. Marcus's presence made her feel stronger, braver, even human in a way she rarely allowed herself to be. But their brief calm shattered as the tunnel narrowed sharply. Ahead, the faint glow of energy sensors lit up the walls. Valer's agents had anticipated their path, cutting them off. Lyra's stomach clenched. They were trapped, or so it seemed. Marcus stopped suddenly. "We have one chance," he said, eyes scanning the sensors. "Follow my lead. Trust me." Lyra's pulse raced, but she nodded. Together, they ducked behind a pile of crates, careful not to touch the glowing sensors. Marcus pulled a small device from his belt, sending a pulse that temporarily disabled the energy field. A faint hiss filled the air as the sensors blinked out. "Go," Marcus shouted. They ran, hearts pounding, feet pounding against the wet stone floor. The tunnel twisted sharply, then opened into a hidden courtyard overgrown with vines and neglected machinery. For the first time since the chase began, Lyra felt a flicker of hope. They were not free, but they had survived. Breathing heavily, she looked at Marcus. "We made it. For now." Marcus gave a small grin, his eyes still alert. "Not out of danger yet. But we're closer. We have options." Lyra nodded, determination hardening. "Then we plan. We survive, and we make it through this no matter what." The moon rose high, casting pale light on the abandoned courtyard. Shadows stretched long, and the city beyond seemed quiet, almost peaceful. But Lyra knew better. Danger was never far behind, and the clock was still ticking. Less than 2 days remained before galactic law demanded she marry, or lose everything. She turned to Marcus, her eyes shining in the moonlight. "Tomorrow we move again. But tonight we survive. Together." Marcus's hand brushed hers briefly. A simple gesture, but one that said more than words could. They had faced danger, evaded capture, and survived. And in that shared struggle, an unspoken bond began to grow. Lyra clenched her fists, whispering to herself as the night air filled her lungs. 3 days. 1 left. I will not fail. Not now. Not ever. The sun had not yet risen, but Lyra and Marcus were already on the move. The narrow canals and hidden streets of the old district provided some cover, yet the memory of Vaylor's agents haunted their every step. The previous night's escape had left them tense, alert, and acutely aware that danger could strike at any moment. Lyra walked a few paces behind Marcus, her silver hair catching the dim light of the lanterns hanging from ancient walls. The city was quiet, almost eerily so, but she could feel its pulse. The distant hum of engines, the faint chatter of early risers, the shifting shadows that seemed alive. She kept her eyes sharp, but for the first time since the 3-day deadline began, she allowed herself to glance at Marcus. He moved with quiet confidence, scanning the streets and rooftops, his hand occasionally brushing against hers for guidance or support. She realized she was beginning to trust him in a way she had never trusted anyone, human or alien. The thought startled her. "You've changed," Marcus said suddenly, his voice low and calm. He glanced at her, a faint smirk on his face. "You're stronger than I imagined." Lyra blinked, surprised. "Changed?" she asked softly. "Yes," he replied. "When we first met, you were desperate, afraid. Now, you're focused, determined, even brave in ways most would envy. You're more than a widow facing the law. You're someone who can survive anything, and maybe even thrive." Lyra felt a warm blush creep up her cheeks, though she quickly masked it. Compliments from humans were rare, and Marcus's words carried weight because they were not flattery. They were observation, recognition. She nodded, her throat tight. "I have no choice," she said simply. "I can't fail. If I do, I lose everything, and I can't live with that." Marcus stopped for a moment, lowering his hand from hers. "You're not alone," he said quietly. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. If we face danger, we face it together." Her chest tightened. This was more than she had hoped for. A human who understood the stakes, who was willing to stand by her. And yet the bond that had begun to form was fragile, shaped by desperation and danger. One wrong move and everything could fall apart. They continued walking in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the quiet splash of water in the canals and the distant hum of hovering ships. Lyra felt a strange mix of fear and comfort. Fear for the days ahead, comfort in the presence of Marcus, who seemed capable of navigating threats she could not even imagine. Finally, they reached a small abandoned plaza with a fountain long dried and cracked. Lyra leaned against the edge, catching her breath. Marcus sat nearby, his posture relaxed but alert. "You trust me," he said after a moment, his gaze fixed on her. "I can see it, and I trust you too." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "Trust so quickly?" Marcus shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Sometimes you know it when you feel it. We've survived ambushes, chased by agents, and faced a city full of dangers. Trust isn't blind. It's earned in moments like this." Lyra's lips parted in surprise, then softened into a small, genuine smile. She had not expected him to speak so openly, so honestly. She realized something she hadn't admitted even to herself. She was beginning to care for him, not just as an ally, but as someone who mattered deeply to her. "You're different," she said quietly. "Most humans I've met, they only see profit, risk, or opportunity. You see more. You see people, you see me." Marcus looked at her with a warmth that made her heart flutter. "And I like what I see," he said simply. "You're strong, smart, and not afraid to face danger. I've seen what you're capable of, Lyra. You're not just surviving, you're commanding the situation." Lyra felt a surge of emotion. She had expected the days ahead to be filled with fear and desperation. Instead, she found herself forming a bond, a connection built on shared struggle, mutual respect, and the thrill of survival. But reality quickly intruded. The clock was still ticking. Less than 2 days remained before galactic law demanded her marriage. Count Valer's agents were still out there ready to strike. Danger was never far away. "We can't get comfortable," Marcus said, breaking her reverie. "The agents will adapt. They'll find another way to trap us. We need to plan our next move carefully." Lyra nodded, her resolve hardening. "I know, but thank you, Marcus, for trusting me, for standing with me. I didn't expect anyone to do this." Marcus's expression softened. "I told you we survive together. And whatever happens, we face it as a team. That's all that matters." For a long moment, they simply sat together in silence, the weight of the world pressing on them, yet eased slightly by the bond that had formed. Lyra realized that she was not alone. Not in the fight, not in the city, not even in the galaxy. The moon climbed higher, casting pale light across the plaza, glinting off the edges of the fountain. Shadows stretched long, whispering of danger, intrigue, and the trials yet to come. Lyra stood, brushing her robes, determination shining in her eyes. "Tomorrow we move again. We find a way to survive, to outsmart Valer, and to convince you that this marriage is our best chance, together." Marcus stood beside her, a quiet smile on his face. "Together," he echoed. And in that moment, amidst fear, danger, and the ticking clock of galactic law, Lyra felt something she had not felt in a long time: hope. Not just for survival, but for a future that she might actually share with someone who understood her, who respected her, and who could be her ally, her partner. Maybe even more. 3 days. 1 day passed. Less than 2 remained, and Lyra was ready to face whatever came next. The city's glow had dimmed under the shadow of approaching danger. Lyra and Marcus moved cautiously through a narrow corridor beneath the ancient spire, the faint hum of distant engines echoing like a warning. Count Valer's agents had tracked them relentlessly, and now it was no longer a chase. They were cornered. Lyra's pulse quickened as she glanced at Marcus. "They know where we are," she whispered, her voice tight with urgency. "This is it." Marcus nodded, scanning the passage. "Stay calm. We've survived worse. Stick close to me and don't hesitate." His hand brushed hers briefly, a quiet reassurance that steadied her nerves. A sudden sound, a soft metallic clang, echoed down the corridor. Lyra stiffened. Shadows moved in the distance, elongated and deliberate. The agents had found them. Marcus took a deep breath. "Remember, Lyra, Count Valer wants your estate, not you dead. Yet, that gives us an advantage. We fight smart, not reckless." Lyra swallowed hard, nodding. Her body was tense, ready to move, to dodge, to fight if necessary. But this confrontation was more than physical. It was a test of wits, courage, and survival instinct. The first agent appeared at the end of the corridor, a tall figure with an angular helmet and glowing weapon. Marcus stepped forward, holding up his hand. "Stop," he called. "We don't want unnecessary casualties." The agent hesitated, scanning him carefully, but another figure appeared behind, closing the corridor. Lyra realized their escape route was cut off. "They're trying to intimidate us," she whispered. "We need to outsmart them." Marcus's eyes flicked to the ceiling, noting a narrow beam above. "Cover me," he said. Lyra leaped onto a side platform, scanning for anything they could use. Her mind raced, thinking like she never had before. Every strategy, every escape route, every potential weapon. The agents advanced, cautious but relentless. Lyra's hands found a loose panel in the wall. With a swift pull, she activated a small energy disruptor embedded within the building's structure. A pulse of bright light surged through the corridor, temporarily blinding the agents and knocking their sensors offline. Marcus grabbed her hand. Go, he shouted. Together they dashed through a hidden side passage, moving silently yet swiftly. The agent stumbled, shouting in frustration, but Lyra and Marcus were already gone. They emerged in a wide, abandoned hall, moonlight streaming through broken windows. Lyra's chest heaved as she scanned the space. There was no immediate threat, but the confrontation was far from over. Count Vaylor himself stood at the far end, a smug expression on his sharp features. So the widow thinks she can escape me. Vaylor's voice was cold, smooth, and commanding. And you, he said, turning to Marcus, are just a foolish human meddling in affairs far beyond your understanding. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear twisting in her stomach. I am not afraid of you, Vaylor. You want my estate, yes, but you will not take it without a fight. Vaylor laughed, a low, chilling sound. A fight? Against me? You are a widow and you are with a human. You cannot possibly survive this. Marcus moved closer to Lyra, his hand lightly brushing hers. Together, he said quietly. Lyra nodded, drawing strength from his presence. With a swift motion, Vaylor signaled his agents and they advanced with weapons raised. Lyra and Marcus reacted instantly. Marcus used a hidden blade to deflect an attack, while Lyra activated a holographic shield. Forcing the agents to rethink their approach, they moved in perfect sync, combining agility, intelligence, and strategy, human and alien. Side by side. One agent lunged at Marcus, but Lyra intercepted, using a quick pulse from her device to disable the attacker's weapon. Another agent aimed at her, but Marcus rolled forward, knocking him off balance. The confrontation was a dance of life and death, every move calculated, every second precious. Finally, Vaylor stepped forward, attempting to intimidate them directly. Lyra held her ground, eyes locked on his. Your threats mean nothing, she said, voice strong. We survive together. We outsmart you, and we will not back down. Marcus smiled faintly. You underestimated us, Vaylor. You thought a human and a widow could not act as one. You were wrong. The agents faltered, unsure, their confidence shaken by the duo's coordination and clever tactics. Vaylor's smug expression faded, replaced by frustration. He realized that brute force alone would not win this confrontation. Lyra stepped forward, her device aimed at the energy conduits lining the walls. Last warning, she said. Leave now or we take control of this hall. And then there will be no escape. Vaylor's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, silence stretched, tense and heavy. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he signaled his agents to retreat. This is not over, he hissed, his voice low but dangerous. You may have won this round, but the law and I will not forget. As they disappeared into the shadows, Lyra exhaled, relief flooding through her. Marcus turned to her, eyes warm. You were incredible, he said softly. I didn't think we could outsmart them so quickly. Lyra's chest swelled with pride, but she remained focused. It's not over yet. One day left. We survive and we prepare. We cannot let Vaylor or the law corner us again. Marcus nodded, offering her his hand. Then we face it together, he said. Lyra took it without hesitation. Their bond had strengthened in the crucible of danger, proving that humans and aliens could survive, sometimes even thrive, when united. 3 days. 1 day passed. Less than one remained. The confrontation had tested them, forged them, and prepared them for the final step. Lyra was ready to act, and this time she would not fail. The final day had arrived. Lyra stood on the balcony of the hidden sanctuary they had claimed after the confrontation with Count Vaylor. The city below was bathed in pale sunlight, yet the world felt heavy with anticipation. Only hours remained before Galactic Law's deadline. Every second ticked loudly in her mind, echoing the urgency of the past 3 days. She glanced at Marcus, who was meticulously checking their gear, scanning the city with quiet vigilance. He moved with confidence now, tempered by the recent dangers, but there was a weight in his eyes, the knowledge that the ultimate choice lay ahead. Lyra took a deep breath. This is it, she whispered. We've survived every threat, every trap, but now, it comes down to you. Marcus looked at her, the sunlight catching the edge of his strong features. Me? He asked softly. Yes, Lyra said, stepping closer. You know the law. You know the risks. You know the agents will return if we fail. And yet, I need you to decide, Marcus. To trust me, to choose us. He studied her, seeing not desperation but strength. not a plea but determination. And in that moment he realized he had already made his choice, not out of duty, not out of obligation, but because of the bond they had forged in fire. "Shadow and danger, Lyra," he said, his voice steady. "I've seen your courage. I've seen your strength. You're not asking me to take a risk for money or power. You're asking me to take a chance on something real. And I choose that chance." Relief and joy flooded Lyra's chest, though the moment was tempered by the urgency still pressing on them. "Then we act," she said. "The law requires proof, an official ceremony, and we have to do it quickly, before the agents or anyone else interferes." They moved through the hidden corridors, their footsteps silent but purposeful. Marcus and Lyra worked together seamlessly, bypassing the city's remaining patrols, avoiding the streets where Vaylor's spies might lurk. Every step felt like a race against time. Finally, they arrived at a small chamber, one that served as an official registry for the city. The registrar waited, a thin figure with mechanical arms and a neutral expression. "You are early," the registrar said, voice calm. "Galactic law requires witnesses and verification. Do you understand the conditions?" Lyra nodded, stepping forward with confidence. "We do. And we accept." Marcus placed his hand gently over hers. "We've survived every obstacle," he said. "We can survive this too." The registrar activated the ceremonial hologram, displaying the glowing text of Galactic law's marriage requirement. Lyra's pulse quickened, but she held her composure. The past 3 days, the chase, the confrontation, the bond they had formed, all led to this moment. "You may speak your vows," the registrar instructed. Lyra looked into Marcus's eyes, her voice clear and steady. "Marcus, I have faced death, loss, and despair, but in these moments I found you. You have been my strength, my ally, my protector. I ask you to stand by me, not for law, not for wealth, but because together we can face the galaxy and survive. Marry me." Marcus swallowed, then spoke with calm certainty. "Lyra, I have seen your courage, your intelligence, and your heart. I choose to stand by you, to face danger with you, and to share every step of this journey. I accept you, fully and without hesitation." The hologram shimmered, the lights glowing brighter as the registrar verified their union. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. Galactic law had accepted their marriage. Lyra exhaled, a laugh of relief escaping her lips. Marcus smiled, his hand squeezing hers, but even in victory there was caution. Outside, the city was still alive with intrigue, and Vaylor's shadow lingered. They had survived the confrontation, but the future held more challenges. Still, together they felt unstoppable. Lyra turned to Marcus, her silver hair catching the light. "We survived, but this is just the beginning," she said softly. Marcus smiled, a hint of amusement and warmth in his eyes. "Then we face it together. No law, no enemy, no danger will stop us because we have each other." A gentle wind swept through the chamber, carrying the distant hum of the city and the promise of a new dawn. Lyra felt a surge of hope, stronger than she had felt in years. The deadline had passed, the choice had been made, and together, they had forged a bond unbreakable, tested by fire and danger. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to dream, not of survival, not of escape, but of a future she could share with Marcus. Adventure awaited, new worlds to explore, challenges to face, and perhaps a life of unexpected happiness. She glanced at him one last time, her heart steady. 3 days, she whispered, smiling. "We survived 3 days, and now we can survive anything." Marcus's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "Yes," he said softly. "Together we can survive anything." And in that moment, with Galactic law satisfied, enemies momentarily retreating, and the galaxy stretching before them, Lyra and Marcus took their first step into a future filled with hope, partnership, and the promise of countless adventures to come.